Hi guys, it is April from Getting Hooked With It. Today I'm here to share with you my favorite horror books that I read in 2018. I read some amazing horror books, so good. I'm also sharing things in other videos like my favorite thrillers and my favorite nonfiction. So look out for those if you haven't been watching those already. But first, let's dive into the horror. So the first horror book that I read in 2018 that I loved is Dead Girls. Now, I think a lot of people look at this and think thriller, but I thought this was much more horror than thriller. This might not be hardcore horror, I'm not saying that it is, but there is a supernatural element strung throughout the storyline of this book. And in this book we're following two little girls, I think they're 11, and they're best friends. They're best friends until one of them is murdered. And the other best friend who remains alive, I think her name is Tara, she decides, no, you don't get to kill my best friend and get away with it. And she takes justice into her own hands. But this is not only about that storyline. This is about a little girl discovering the dangers of being a woman, the dangers of becoming a woman, the dangers of men in particular, and how men and the male gaze can ruin your life and can put you in so much danger. I really thought this was brilliantly written, and it was much more layered. It had a lot of messages in here that weren't just like, it was not all plot. There was a lot of messages in here that I just thought was so important, and I loved it. So that's Dead Girls by Abigail Tartlin. I went on and on about this book in the summer, I think it was, but The Cabman at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, this made Paul Tremblay into my favorite horror author of all time. Man, this guy is talented. This is about a family who are staying at a cabin, and we meet Wen outside. She's collecting, I think, grasshoppers or like those little lightning bug things. And one day, while she's doing this, a man comes up the driveway, and he seems friendly enough. He starts talking to her, and then he says, "Wen, what's about to happen? It's not your fault." And he starts walking towards the house, and she's like, all of the alarm bells go off in her head. She races into the house, tells her two dads what's going on outside. They look outside and start seeing not only this one man coming in, but three other really creepy people coming up the drive. They're all wielding really weird weapons that they made themselves. And it's about their experience. It is not for the faint of heart. Like, this is bloody. It's definitely bloody. I could not put this down. I needed to know what was going to happen to Wen and her two dads, who you care for so much in the span of 250 pages. Wow. So much fun. Definitely go and read The Cabin at the End of the World if you haven't yet. Another amazing horror book was The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. This is slow moving, and that's part of the point of it. It's very slow moving at the beginning, where nothing happens for the first 100 pages, but this is a haunted house story, and we meet a family post-war. They're down on their luck. The upper class isn't so upper class anymore. They are losing their money, and this family has this enormous mansion that they can't take care of. It is crumbling around them. And a doctor who knew the family kind of, at arm's length. He his mother was a servant there when he was growing up, so he has visited the home several times in his childhood. He goes to go and check in on a maid who is feeling very ill, and then he repeatedly comes back. This is about the battle between the middle class and the upper class, just as much as it is a ghost story. It's so much so that I got so involved in those storylines that I would forget it's a ghost story, and then something so creepy would happen that it would shock to me even more. So when you read this, if you read this, go in knowing it's so much more than a haunted house story. It is so layered and so well written. I think it's my favorite haunted house book that I've ever read. Big claims, I know, big claims. And then the last book that I have to share with you is Come Closer by Sarah Gran. I got this out of the library and I loved this book. If you like exorcist kinds of books and possession kinds of books, this is a really fun one. It's super short as well. And this is about a woman who is possessed, and you are reading it from her perspective, which is very different for possession stories, I think. And you are in her head, and so you meet her when she's sensing strange things. She's having strange thoughts, or suddenly she has a third voice in her head that kind of came out of nowhere, and she's hearing the knocks in the night on the walls and everywhere, and it's just so creepy. It's a wild ride, and super fast paced, and I loved it. So those are all of the best horror books that I read in 2018. I think I had my best reading year for horror that I've ever had. Like, I also read The Exorcist, and this didn't even make it to the list, and that was good. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what the best horror book that you read was in 2018, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye guys.